Welcome to my podcast, Why Get Wasted? Innovative Solutions to Climate Change. I'm so excited you found us. In this podcast, I'll be talking with really interesting people who've come up with innovative solutions for tackling climate change. There's so much fear and discouragement now, and I know we can all feel helpless to do anything about what we see and know is happening with our planet. But people are creative and resilient, and they can be really smart, and often in times of crisis, really step up to the plate. So I wanted to draw attention and talk further to some people who've come up with their own way to help all of us fight for our planet. And now a little bit about me. My name is Liz Entin, and I'm the founder of Why Get Wasted. We offer customized plans for businesses and events, both personal and professional, to help them be more climate friendly and sustainable. We've worked with everything from festivals and concerts to fashion shows, and even your kid's birthday party or your own dinner party. While doing this, I've just met some really inspiring people. And now I want to share their stories, the companies they've created, and the solutions they've come up with all of you. We can all work together to fix this. And now I hope you enjoy this episode of Why Get Wasted? Innovative Solutions to Climate Change. I am talking now with Julia Billings, and she is founder of Wildhaven Wools. So welcome, Julia. Tell us a little bit about you and Wildhaven Wools and what you're working on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, Liz. So Wildhaven Wools is a sustainable kids clothing company, and we focus on merino wool clothing specifically. We chose wool for a variety of reasons, but we're based up in Alaska, and so up here we kind of wear wool base layers almost all year round, and they're really a foundational garment, and so that's where our company started. Um, and yeah, we are, innovating in a couple of different ways to make our clothes more sustainable and better for the planet. And so, yeah, it's been a passion project of mine for the last few years. It's really fun.
So what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so I actually come from an environmental science background. I was an environmental science professional for I almost 20-year career. And I worked a lot on um, Department of Defense waste sites where they had dumped, a bunch of stuff and cleaning up the environment and all of those things. And so I kind of come from that world, and I started having kids, and I wanted more options for them. I had my first kiddos, and I looked around, and the clothing that I wanted for them just didn't exist yet. I also come from a home sewing background. So I learned to sew when I was really young, and I've always loved sewing my own clothes. Not so much to save money per se, just it's nice to be able to make clothes that fit your body. I think in this kind of culture, we're taught that like we need to change our bodies to fit the sizes and the clothes that are available, and it's really should be the other way around. Like your clothes should be made to fit you. Um, and so that was really freeing for me, and I really loved it. So I had kids, and I wanted to make them some really good base layers. And in the home sewing world, there's these patterns that are called Grow With Me. And the idea is you make one garment, and the way it's designed, it lasts for like 3 or 4 years. Like it fits for a really long time. So rather than making like in normal kid sizing, like particularly for babies, it's 0 to 3, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and so on. You just make one thing that fits from 3 months to 18 months. And the way it's made, and we can talk a little more about the design if you're interested, but it has super long cuffs, and the way the sleeves are set And a lot of them even have like drawstrings along the waist so they shorten and lengthen, or snaps so that they can kind of fold up when the kid is little and then expand as they grow. And so it's just a great way to make things last longer. And I really wanted some nice wool base layers for my kids, and I wanted merino wool, which is super soft, and I wanted to use eco-friendly fabrics. It was important to me where the wool came from, and so I just wanted to do it a little better than what I saw out there. And that was kind of how Wildhaven was born. And then I also wanted to make them cute and fun and colorful, which I thought was really lacking in like kids activewear at the time. It was just all like black and gray, and it was a lot of adult stuff just made small for kids rather than activewear and like base layers that were designed for kids that kids actually want to wear. So that's where Wildhaven came from.
I was looking at the website. I'm like, it's really cute. I used to sew clothes a lot when I was a kid too. Not for me. I would have probably been happier like if I'd had time to go do that. I kind of went to these like ridiculously academic competitive schools I really regret, but I would make them all for my dolls. And then I worked in fashion for a bit because I was so into all of that. So it's
Okay.
so fun. I love that you made your own clothes. And of course, that would make sense. You end up working in fashion now. So you said that these wools, you sourced them, you found eco. Tell us a little bit about how you sourced them and what makes this wool that you work with eco.
Yeah, for sure. So it was actually it's been kind of a complicated process to find the right fabric. If you go online and like search for merino wool fabric, you'll find a fair number of woven fabrics, like what you would imagine a coat is made out of, right? But what my garments are made out of, and I'm wearing one now, and I know that this is a podcast, you can't quite see, but it's like a jersey
We're going to
fabric.
have a YouTube video too. So if you're just listening, come look at YouTube if you want to see. And I'll also put some photos on the website and Instagram.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's like a jersey. It's not a thick coating type fabric. So it's really stretchy and it's really soft. And so I needed a fabric that was both gonna be this kind of a jersey, but I also wanted something that I knew was environmentally friendly, and that was like where the sheep are treated well. I wanted to make sure there was no museling, which is where they shave the sheep all the way down, like they shave their skin off and causes all this scarring. It's really, really pretty terrible. And so I found this company out of New Zealand, and New Zealand is great because they have just really high eco standards and really high animal welfare standards. And there's an organization there that goes and certifies these small family farms and then co-ops that wool together. And they term it ZQ. And so it's ZQ Merino. And so that made me, that was the fabric that I wanted to use. I wanted to use ZQ Merino. And then on top of that, I wanted to make sure that it was also Okiotech certified. And so that means that it doesn't have any dangerous chemicals in it. It's a pretty basic certification. Like, I don't even think you can sell clothes in Europe that aren't Okiotech certified. But in the US, of course, we waive those rules. Gotta love capitalism.
Unfortunately, yeah.
You can have all kinds of weird chemicals in your clothing that you wouldn't, that is like carcinogens and that are dangerous for you. So Okiotech certified means it's not going to have the 100 worst of those in there, which is better than nothing. And then I also wanted to make sure that the fabric I was using, like the wool is sourced from New Zealand, but New Zealand doesn't actually make the fabric. So the wool is sourced there, and then they send it to Vietnam where the fabric is actually constructed. And so I wanted to look into the factory there and make sure that they, also had like the certifications, eco certifications, blue sign certifications, and all that. So the fabric I use is more expensive than a lot of the other stuff you find on the market, but I also feel confident that I know the supply chain, I know where it's coming from, and the product is really beautiful too. Like on top of that, it's just the colors are super vibrant, the quality is really high, it's really soft, it washes really well, so you can wash and dry it, which from a practical standpoint just makes a lot of sense for kids because they get dirty.
So I want to ask you some about the chemicals in clothes. How do we avoid that? I mean, is this across the board, whether, okay, if I'm talking about myself as living in the United States, is this across the board, whether I get something at Target versus Prada? I mean, are they, obviously that's a huge price difference. And, you know, taking away
I
everything else
agree.
about human labor, all of that, just purely the environmental chemicals, you're going to find it across the board. And I won't even say specific brands. I don't want anyone coming after me. I was using that as an example.
Totally. And I can't speak to specific brands either. Like, I don't know. One thing you can do, though, as a consumer, is you can look for that OKO-Tech certification. So
Mhm.
brands that use it will tell you because it's more expensive and it's a most sustainable brands do. Organic cottons are more likely to have it than non-organic. Polyesters, I don't even know if polyesters can be OKO-Tech certified just by their very nature and the fact that they're made of plastics. But um I'd have to look into it. I really don't know. I only know for like wool and cotton. And I think we're gonna start doing some hemp cotton blends, and those are OKO-Tech certified as well. So it should be on the labels. Um, I think in general, just for your clothes, like natural fibers are always going to be better for the environment. Secondhand is always going to be best if you can get things that are already made. But if you're going to buy new things, trying to buy natural fibers, they're going to have less chemicals.
And the animal cruelty, I guess when it came to wool, I never thought of that. I'm like, oh, I mean, obviously you hear of horrors with factory farms. I try to stay away from that, but I always assumed shear a sheep, that's fine. But no, that's apparently not the case. It's how, what can we all
Yeah.
do about that?
I think the other thing, I think as a consumer, really just awareness. I think that's really the biggest first step. Like if you don't realize that people are putting chemicals in your clothes, you don't even know, you wouldn't even know to ask, right? Like the FDA doesn't regulate that. They only regulate what we consume within our bodies, not what we put on our bodies. Which is really kind of backwards because when you think about it, like all of those chemicals end up in our water and our soil and in our system, and then they end up back in our bodies. But um, for the animal welfare stuff, I think you you can see so anything that's ZQ certified, and you can look that up, and there is a list of like ZQ certified companies, and most companies that use ZQ certified wool because it is more expensive. Again, they'll let you know. Um, then non-mulesed as well. Like there's which isn't quite as
What
robust.
what non-mules? I don't know what that
Yeah,
means.
so mulesing is the process where they shear and they take the skin off of the sheep. And
Okay.
so the wool will be called non-mulesed. It's Mulesed.
Okay.
So if you really
That's so
terrible rabbit hole, but if you go down the mulesing rabbit hole, you'll learn there's some like big farms in China that like not to call out China 'cause I feel like they get a bad rap sometimes, but where they're just not, they're trying to like mass produce this wool because it does fetch a better price on the market, and so they're doing things that are not super sound and good for the animals. But like the ZQ stuff is kind of awesome. It's like a big co-op, so it's all these small family farms in New Zealand, people who have been raising sheep and producing wool for generations, and they're able to band together and offer a good product at a good price and all able to stay in business because they've co-opted together. So it's pretty cool.
oh, that's good. That's yeah.
Yeah. And then
Um,
the
are
incentive for them to treat the sheep well because they're all making a living.
and I guess every you start going down the rabbit holes and learning more and more. There's just the next levels you learn about. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we have to keep trying to get the word out and hoping more and more people start going towards protecting our planet and protecting animals. Um, and you mentioned before, we were talking a little bit before, and you said that base of where you live. You live in Alaska. I've really never met anyone from Alaska who actually lives there. I'm so interested in that. And you said based on where you live, that's a big part of what either got you into interested in climate in the first place, or that. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think living in Alaska gives you kind of a unique perspective on climate change because it feels I think more immediate. There's like literally glaciers melting, in your backyard and people being displaced because of sea level rise. But also like my product is specifically, it's not necessarily just made for Alaskans, but it was designed for my kids, to keep them comfortable playing outside all day. And we spend a lot of time outdoors here. Um, just because that's kind of the lifestyle that we've chosen to live. And as a result, like I need clothes that I can put my kids in and they're gonna be comfortable in them all day. And the nice thing about wool, I love plant-based fibers, and I do think that like sustainability wise, plant-based fibers are probably better, but you can't get the same performance out of plant-based fibers that you can in terms of warmth and temperature regulation. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. But I do think raising kids that are spending a ton of time outdoors in the end will be the better trade-off. I think that future generations being able to appreciate our planet and really love and care for it is what will really keep this planet going. Um, so that's part of being Alaskan, a roundabout way. And the other thing that really like where I live, we live in a super small town, and in terms of waste, like that was kind of the grow with me thing. Like there's not really anywhere to buy anything even if I wanted it, but we're just really cognizant of our waste. Like, we don't have any trash pickup. So every time you want to go get rid of your trash, you have to take it in a bag to the dump. You have to go and drive and wait in line and smell the dump and see the landfill. And it's very in your face. And then you have to pay $23 to throw away this bag of trash. Like, it's a very like, okay, here's my waste that I'm putting in this place. And I think that's been really impactful for me. And just knowing that, like, oh man, how can we reduce this? Like, this is actually, it's not, I don't throw it away and some garbage truck comes and gets it, and write a check that I never really pay much attention to, which is the way it used to be when we lived in a more urban place. So that's been really impactful, I think, on my life and my business, just being so much more aware of the waste that we create.
And I think so few people get to see that. I wonder if everyone got to see the reality of it that up close, because I think most of us, you live on clean neighborhoods and clean streets. You put everything in a little bin or box, it's picked up, you don't see it. And I think, that there's this concept like, oh, you're throwing it away, but that just means moving it to a new place. I know we were talking about that a little bit before. It's kind of like if you clean your house, let's say you do like a really big clean, and you just move all this stuff you're getting rid of and all the garbage and the dirt, you're just move it to another part of your house. So maybe a couple of the rooms are really clean and the others aren't, and you're going to keep adding to it and keep adding to it. I mean, our planet's pretty small and there's a lot of us. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you actually have to see that giant pile of trash, you're like, oh, yeah, that's gross.
and is
So,
it very embedded in the culture there now? Because I mean, you guys actually are seeing the glaciers melt. You're really, I mean, and you're seeing the trash. Is this kind of a very, would you say everybody there is very aware of climate and involved with it?
I'd say people are aware of it. I don't know that everybody, it's hard. I think people are get kind of stuck in their ways and they don't want to change. And I think the best thing you can do, or at least that I can do, is just lead by example and do my best. And try and support the organizations. We have some great organizations. I'm up in Haines, Alaska, and we have a great recycling center, and that's free. And so if you're budget minded, it's much cheaper to recycle than it is to throw away your trash, and so things like that. And it's hard to get rid of things here. And so I think people are a little more cognizant, like, oh, do I really need that? Because when I'm done with it, like it's gonna be really expensive for me to get rid of it. So what am I gonna
And
do
when
about
you like lifestyle, like when you go into coffee shops, it's one thing here is unfortunately you go in and most people are using single-use cups, plastic or paper,
it?
which actually just has like a layer of wax, plastic, bad materials anyway. When you go into the coffee shops, are most people using single-use cups? Are most people bringing their own cups?
Yeah, most people do bring their own cups. I'd say that's a pretty normal thing. Most people bring their own bags, like most people, I would say it's less common to see the single-use stuff here. There's a lot more bulk, people, you go into people's houses and the shelves are just jars full of bulk things rather than individual packages. Um, but yeah, as a culture, we still have a ways to go, even, here and everywhere, I think.
You sound further than here. I'm in New York, and I think human behavior is one of the hardest things because, and it's hard. It's no judgment. It's really hard to change habits. But, I think in New York, there's a lot of people I meet who genuinely care and talk about it, but the day-to-day implementation, they don't do. And again, that makes total sense. It's hard. You lived a certain way. There's so much of our lives because we can only do so much and in our day and with our lives, and we're already so busy that it's hard to change unconscious habits, and that's asking a lot, and obviously like you and I are doing stuff working with climate, so it's on the tops of our minds all the time, but you can't expect that of everybody, so things somehow we have to figure out how to kind of bring it more to the top of awareness, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I do think it's gotten better, and I guess I just have to believe that, like, by consumer choice, we can start driving change. I remember when I was a kid, like, there was no organic vegetable aisle in our grocery store. Like, that was not a thing, And now there's, like, even in Hanes, there's organic vegetables. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's neat to me to see, like, we've just decided that we don't want to spray pesticides all over our food. I think we can make similar decisions about wrapping everything in plastic. Like, stop buying individually packaged things, and the companies who make them will say, "Oh, these aren't selling anymore. Maybe we should do it differently." I think it's a slow roll. I don't think it's an overnight thing, but I do think we can. I think everybody can do a little bit to make a difference. You know, I'm not perfect either. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have my moments of, I forget my grocery bag too, or I need a bottle of water too. Like, nobody's perfect. And I think if you start getting preachy about it and self-righteous about it, then you really go down a path where people stop listening. So finding that
I
balance.
agree. I mean, who wants to be preached at or judged? None
Yeah,
of us
it's
do.
no fun. And
So,
nobody wants to be made feel bad about what they're doing. I think it's much better to focus on the positive and, like, the little things you can do.
so yeah, again, kind of along the lines of what we're talking about, it can be kind of intimidating to first get started. Or what are some tips you have that people could bring it into their just day-to-day life that maybe you do?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question, and particularly, like, just kind of rolling it back to, like, clothing in general, and then kids clothing specifically. But I think a big thing is to try and use what you have, right? Like, update things for a different season, or repair things when they get holes. I mean, that's one thing about kids' clothes. Like, my kids wear holes in the knees of their pants. Like it's going out of style. I mean, it's a good thing that actually is a trend to have, like, ripped pants, because that's the way my kids look all the time. Um, But just, we offer like at Wildhaven, and this is for anyone. So if anybody wants a patch kit, just send me an email and I'm happy to send you one. But we offer like permanent iron-on patch kits for all of our products. And we do free repairs as well. So like we have 100% guarantee on all of our work. So if you buy a set of wool from us and they get a hole or a tear, doesn't matter how long you've had them, you send them back and we'll repair them. So I have whole days that are just dedicated to repairing, and it's really important to me to try and get those things to last as long as they possibly can. So that's a small thing you can do, just like before you throw it away, think about whether it can be repaired. And if there's, a seamstress that does alterations that is near you, I promise you, if you brought them a few things with holes in them for not, a couple bucks a pair, they'd probably, throw a patch on there for you. And the patches that we use, they're just iron-on patches. Like if you have an iron, you can apply this patch and it's permanent and it stays on there forever, throughout the washing cycle of the garment. So I think that's a big one. And yeah, and look into like the next time you buy clothes for your kids or even for yourself, but just look into things that you think are gonna last for a little while rather than the like cheapest option. What about the option that's in the end of the day going to save you money and it's going to, be a staple in your closet for a while? The dress that's versatile that you can like put a long sleeve over or underneath, in the winter time, but wear as a tank dress in the summer or and that's why our stuff is Grow With Me. Like it fits for a really long time. That's part of the reason we end up doing repairs on it because it fits for so long. People are like, okay, it's got a hole, but it still doesn't, it still fits. I'm like, all right, sweet, let's get it patched up and get you back on the road. So, and I think there is definitely a movement toward that in general. So those are just some little things. Single-use plastics are my one, like, if I had to have another banner, it would be single-use plastics. I really think we don't need them. And I know it's hard, don't get me wrong, but everybody just go out and buy some of those little fabric bags or some beeswax paper or something. And then for takeout, and I know this one I feel a little weird doing sometimes, but I just bring my own like glass jars or Tupperware for takeout. And honestly, in general, I've never had pushback on it. People are like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll put that in there for you." Like saves us money, saves you money. Um,
Yeah.
so those are some
I do
little.
that too. Yeah, most businesses, I've rarely just like right when we were first all getting vaccinated and starting to go out was the only time that I had companies be like, we can't put stuff into any outside,
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah.
containers. But now I've had no pushback, and they're usually really excited about it because they're like, oh, I hadn't even thought of it. Because again, this stuff is not necessarily on everyone's mind. They get pretty interested. I've had quite a few ask me questions about, you know,
Yeah.
what if I'm involved with climate. They get really curious overall. Um, so I wanted to ask you a little bit of an extra question because I had not realized, and I actually thought if you come back on at some point, I hadn't realized you were a climate scientist for how long? It's again a very long time.
Yeah, so well I don't know if I'd say climate scientist. I was an environmental scientist. I worked
Environmental scientist. Okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't really focused on climate per se, but I was focused on environmental pollution and how do we clean it up, kind of like figuring out where it is and how do we clean it up. I did that for 20 years. So I'm a certified professional geologist, and yeah, that's kind of my other background. And I'd be happy to come and talk to you guys about that, different types of waste and waste streams and PFAS and other, emerging contaminants and things that unfortunately we have to think about now. So,
Well, yeah, I'll message you. I'd love you to come back on in another episode and talk about that. I think that would be, I mean, there's just layers that I think I absolutely don't know. Most people probably don't know. Even if you know the concepts, like don't use single-use plastic, you don't
yeah.
really know all the whys. So I think that would be interesting if yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to come and talk about it. And I do think that Sometimes even in my own business, because I'm in the fashion space now and like product space, so it's really different than what I was doing. But sometimes it's nice to hear about that stuff from somebody who's not as entrenched in it, because I think maybe now I can explain it to people in a way that doesn't sound so like intimidating and full of acronyms, which
Right.
and when you're in like the science and yeah, the sciences, you can get kind of trapped in your own world.
So tell everyone where they can find you and follow you and buy the kids' clothes.
Sure. So our website is wildhavenwools.com and our stuff is on there. We are coming out with a bunch of new colors for fall, so I'm really excited about that. If you guys get on our email list. Um, and then I'm on Instagram at Wildhaven Wools, and it's mostly just cute pictures of kids playing outdoors. So that's always a fun one. We keep it light and fun on there. And then, yeah, if you guys want a patch kit or if you have any other questions, just shoot me an email.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Why Get Wasted? Innovative Solutions to Climate Change. There are so many interesting people doing such great things in the climate space, and I'm really excited to bring them to you. They've inspired me so much, and I hope they inspire you too. So please come visit me and learn more at whygetwasted.com.